लोगों को दीक्षित किया हो और पृथक रूप से उन्हें अपनी प्रतिज्ञा दी हो। बाबा साहब ने इन प्रतिज्ञाओं को धर्म परिवर्तन का अंग बनाकर एक व्यवस्था का उस समय निर्माण किया था और यह आवश्यक इसलिए भी था कि अनेकों वर्षों के संस्कार इसके बिना खंडित नहीं हो पाते और फिर आध्यात्मिकता की पकड़ भी पुराने और उनको छोड़े बिना सघन नहीं हो पाती। वैदिक या हिंदू धर्म के क्रियाकांडों को भुलाए बिना बौद्ध साधना भी कैसे हो सकती है। इसलिए बाबा साहब ने धर्म दीक्षा लेते समय इस प्रतिज्ञाओं को अपनाया था। इस धर्म दीक्षा से धर्म परिवर्तित लोग बौद्ध आध्यात्मिक समुदाय के आधिकारिक सदस्य हो गए और बौद्ध भिक्षु के समान बौद्ध धर्म का पालन करने वाले भी बन गए। और उसके बाद भी बाबा साहब ने दूसरे दिन उन्होंने कहा था कि इस धर्म दीक्षा से मैं अनुभव करता हूँ जैसे मैं नर्क से मुक्ति पा गया हूँ। जीवन को सुव्यवस्थित करने के लिए स्फूर्ति, उत्साह, स्वस्थ शरीर की आवश्यकता होती है जो दरिद्रता और चातुर्वर्ण सिद्धांत के कारण छिन्न भिन्न हो गया। आचरण और व्यवहार की दृष्टि से अब हमें बौद्ध धर्म को जीवन में उतारना होगा। और बाबा साहब की मान्यता थी कि आप ऐसा जीवन जिए कि जिससे आप सम्मान अर्जित कर सके। और बौद्ध धर्मावलंबी व्यक्ति को अन्य लोगों को भी इसके माध्यम से जो है दीक्षित करने का अधिकार भी मिला। और इस धर्म परिवर्तन के माध्यम से जो इन मागास वर्गीय या अस्पृश्य लोगों को लाभ हुआ वह लाभ इस प्रकार थे। तथाकथित कथितों को सामाजिक क्षमता का मिलना, राजनीतिक दृष्टि से अस्पृश्यता को कानूनी अपराध घोषित करना, अस्पृश्यों को कानूनी आरक्षण देना, अस्पृश्यों को सामाजिक, धार्मिक, राजनीतिक और आर्थिक उत्थान की ओर ले जाना, भविष्य में अत्याचारों और असमानतापूर्ण व्यवहारों से संघर्ष लेने की मानसिक तैयारी बनाना, यथार्थ धार्मिकता और आध्यात्मिकता का जो जीवन था उसके साथ जोड़ना, स्वतंत्रता और समानता का व्यवहारिक प्रयोग करना, ईश्वरवादी मानसिक विचारधारा के स्थान पर धर्मवाद की स्थापना और वैदिक क्रियाकर्मों और अमानवीय व्यवहारों से मुक्ति। तो इस प्रकार से जो है हमें इस धर्म परिवर्तन से लाभ हुआ है। और इस धर्म परिवर्तन के बाद बाबा साहब गर्ग जी का कुछ ही दिनों में निधन हो गया और उसके बाद उनके समाज के कुछ गण्यमान्य समृद्ध नेताओं ने इसे चुनावी हथकंडा बना लिया और आरक्षण की आवाज उठाकर वे अपनी स्वार्थ सिद्धि जो है उस समय करने लगे। स्वयं समृद्ध होते हुए भी आरक्षण की सुविधाओं का दुरुपयोग करते रहे। अपने ही समाज के विपन्न सदस्य का स्थान अपने प्रभाव से खींचकर अपने झोले में डालते रहे और इसलिए आरक्षण ने एक और जातिवाद की सुदृढ़ता का पोषण किया तो दूसरी ओर धनी और निर्धन के बीच लंबी चौड़ी खाई पैदा कर दी। और इस प्रकार से जो है यह धर्म क्रांति फिर वह राजनीतिक लोगों के हाथ में चली गई और बाबा साहब के भौतिक ज्योति का अस्त हो जाने के बाद धर्मांतर की प्रक्रिया काफी पैमाने पर कम हो गई और फिर बौद्ध जनता इतने अधिक सचेत और पढ़ी लिखी भी नहीं थी। इसकी वजह से सामाजिक और शैक्षणिक सुविधाओं पर भी प्रश्न चिन्ह लगने लगा और धर्मांतरण में किसी सीमा तक बाधक भी बनने लगा। इन सभी कारणों से कई अधिक महत्वपूर्ण कारण यह है कि बौद्ध जनता बौद्ध धर्म क्या है यह नहीं जानती थी। वह तो बाबा के व्यक्तित्व के पीछे चलना अधिक श्रेष्ठकर समझती थी। इसलिए हम देखते हैं कि आधुनिक भारत में ज्यादातर जो अस्पृश्य लोग हैं वह पहले बाबा साहब को मानते हैं फिर बुद्ध को मानते हैं। यह एक प्रकार से सही भी है क्योंकि बाबा साहब की वजह से ही हमने बुद्ध को पाया है और इस आधुनिक बौद्ध भारत में बौद्ध धर्म को जानने वाले गिने गिने जो लोग हैं वह भी इसका उपयोग राजनीतिक स्वार्थ पूर्ति के लिए जो है उसको अपनाते गए और अनेक वर्ष बौद्ध धर्म के अध्ययन अध्यापन में लगे रहने के बावजूद साहित्यिक क्षेत्र में भी कोई विशेष ऐसा योगदान नहीं दे सके। इसके विपरीत उन्होंने जातीय और धार्मिक भावनाओं को उभार कर असत्य और कृतज्ञता को उन्नति दीवारों की एक श्रृंखला बना ली और मार्ग में अनेक बाधाएं उत्पन्न करके इस धर्म क्रांति को असफल बनाने में बहुत विघ्नता पैदा की और इसी तरह राजनीतिक नेताओं और सामान्य भिक्षुओं ने भी आर्थिक उत्थान के लिए अपना वह योगदान नहीं दिया जिसकी उनसे अपेक्षा थी। उसी प्रकार राजनीतिक पार्टियों में विशेषकर रिपब्लिकन पार्टी इसके भी अनेक गुट हुए और बौद्ध भिक्षुओं की आपसी गंभीर मतभेद भी जो है धर्म क्रांति को असफल बनाने में कारणीभूत हुए और यह गंभीर मतभेद उनकी भौतिकता के प्रति अधिक झुकाव ने समाज के मन पर अच्छा प्रभाव नहीं छोड़ा और इसलिए हम हमेशा सोचते हैं कि यदि बाबा साहब जैसे कुछ समर्पित व्यक्तित्व इस नव बौद्ध समाज को उपलब्ध हो जाते हैं तो इस प्रतिभा संपन्न समाज का आज भी कायापालट हो सकता है। परंतु हम देखते हैं कि आधुनिक भारत में बाबा साहब के वजह से जिन जिन लोगों ने अपनी आर्थिक, सामाजिक, शैक्षणिक प्रगति की है उन लोगों ने बौद्ध धर्म के प्रति इस प्रकार से आत्मीयता होनी चाहिए थी वह हमें दिखाई नहीं देती और यही हमारा दुर्भाग्य है कि हम आज भी अच्छी तरह से बौद्ध नहीं बन पा रहे हैं। हम जानते हैं कि बौद्ध धर्म की वजह से ही हम अच्छे समाज की, अच्छे परिवार की, अच्छे लोगों की निर्मित कर सकते हैं और हमारे पास इसके अलावा दूसरा कोई मार्ग नहीं है। परंतु आज का जो बाबा साहब को मानने वाला समाज है, बुद्ध को मानने वाला समाज है, उसमें अभी तक यह मान्यता नहीं है, एक मत नहीं है किसी भी धार्मिक और सांस्कृतिक कार्यक्रमों में, उनके धार्मिक परंपराओं में, उनके धार्मिक संस्कृति में एक वाक्यता नहीं है। इसका यही कारण है कि जिस प्रकार से हम बाबा साहब को बड़ी श्रद्धा से मानते हैं, परंतु बुद्ध की तरफ हम उस श्रद्धा के साथ नहीं देखते। हम और मेरा व्यक्तिगत भी अनुभव है कि बुद्ध को हम हमेशा बाबा साहब के बाद ही मानते हैं, परंतु बाबा साहब ने जब धम्म दीक्षा दी उस समय जिस 21वीं प्रतिज्ञा को बाबा साहब ने दोहराया था कि मैं यह मानता हूँ कि मेरा पुनर्जन्म हो रहा है। तो पुनर्जन्म इसलिए हो रहा है कि मैं जो मेरी पुरानी मान्यता थी, जो मेरे मन के ऊपर जो पुराने संस्कारों का प्रभाव था, मैं आज उसको छोड़ रहा हूँ, पूरी तरह से छोड़ रहा हूँ। मैं अपने में इमोशनल चेंज और सांकेतिक बदल कर रहा हूँ। और जो बुद्ध के तत्व है, क्षमता का तत्व है, प्राणी मात्रा के प्रति दया का तत्व है, पारमिता का तत्व है, प्रज्ञाशील और करुणा का तत्व है, मैं उसको अपना रहा हूँ, उसको मान रहा हूँ, उसको स्वीकार कर रहा हूँ। तो इस प्रकार से जो उस समय बाबा साहब ने प्रतिज्ञा दी थी, उन प्रतिज्ञाओं को आज के हम जो बौद्ध है उसको उतना सीरियसली, उसको उतना हम महत्व नहीं दे पा रहे हैं। बाबा साहब की वजह से हम तो सीख रहे हैं, पढ़ रहे हैं, नौकरी कर रहे हैं, हमारी आर्थिक पोजीशन भी अच्छी हो रही है, परंतु उसके साथ साथ हमारा व्यक्तिगत जो है स्वार्थ बढ़ रहा है। उस स्वार्थ को हम नहीं छोड़ रहे हैं और इस व्यक्ति की वजह से हम जो है हमारे परिवार के प्रति, हमारे अपनों के प्रति हम जो है ज्यादातर सक्रिय हो गए हैं। समाज के प्रति उतनी भावना जो है जागरूक नहीं हो रही है। इसके अनेक कारण जो है हमें दिखाई देते हैं, परंतु इसका मतलब यह नहीं है कि इस समाज में कुछ कार्य नहीं हो रहा है। कुछ बहुत अच्छी संस्थाएं भी है, कुछ अच्छे लोग भी है जो इसके लिए कार्य कर रहे हैं, परंतु यह कार्य उतने ही सफल नहीं हो रहे हैं। हम कुछ लेवल तक हम इसको लेते जा रहे हैं, परंतु बौद्ध धर्म को बढ़ाने के लिए, बुद्धिज्म को बढ़ाने के लिए हमारे पास वैसा कुछ ठोस प्रोग्राम भी नहीं है, ऐसा कुछ हमारे पास कंस्ट्रक्टिव वर्क भी नहीं है। इसकी वजह से कार्य तो हो रहा है, अनेकों सभाएं हो रही है, अनेकों प्रोग्राम हो रहे हैं, परंतु इसका जो आउटपुट है, इसका आउटपुट कुछ नहीं है। कार्यक्रम हो रहे हैं, करते जा रहे हैं, इसके माध्यम से हमारे समाज में बुद्ध धर्म के प्रति, बुद्ध के प्रति कुछ सकारात्मक विचार निर्माण हो रहे हैं, ऐसा नहीं देखते हैं। इसलिए हमें कुछ अलग ढंग से जो है कुछ कार्य करना पड़ेगा। उसके लिए हम कुछ बातें जो हमारे नजदीक के बौद्ध रास्ते हैं उनसे भी सीख सकते हैं, उनका भी मार्गदर्शन ले सकते हैं, परंतु हम वैसा भी नहीं कर रहे हैं। यह हमारी दुर्भाग्यता है कि हम उसकी ओर भी ध्यान नहीं दे रहे हैं। और एक महत्वपूर्ण बात यह भी है कि इस बौद्ध धर्म को जीवित रखने के लिए जो हमें अच्छे भिक्षुओं की, अच्छे ट्रेनिंग सेंटर की बहुत आवश्यकता जो है हमें महसूस होती है, परंतु उसके तरफ भी जो है हम ज्यादा काम नहीं कर रहे हैं। जैसा कि हम देखते हैं बौद्ध राष्ट्रों में भिक्षुओं को, श्रामणेरों को पढ़ने के लिए उनके स्वतंत्र स्कूल्स होते हैं, स्वतंत्र कॉलेजेस होते हैं, स्वतंत्र उनकी यूनिवर्सिटीज होते हैं, उनका स्वतंत्र सिलेबस होता है। परंतु हमारे यहाँ जो आधुनिक बौद्ध भारत हम कहते हैं उसमें इस प्रकार से जो है भिक्षुओं को पढ़ने के लिए, भिक्षुओं को सिखाने के लिए ऐसी कुछ व्यवस्था जो है जिसका हम कुछ आउटपुट जो है ले सकते हैं, जिसको हम कंस्ट्रक्टिव वर्क बोलते हैं, इस प्रकार से हमारे पास कुछ भी नहीं है। हमारे पास विहार तो है, परंतु इन विहारों की भी रचना इस प्रकार से है या हम यहाँ कार्य भी नहीं कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि हर विहारों में भी उनकी अपनी स्वतंत्र संगठना है और उस संगठना का प्रत्येक व्यक्ति उस विहार को अपनी पर्सनल प्रॉपर्टी मानते हैं। इसलिए उस विहारों में भी कुछ हम ऐसे धर्म को बढ़ावा देने के लिए, बौद्ध धर्म को फैलाने के लिए भी हम अच्छी तरह से कार्य नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। और यह जो आज हम ज्यादातर विहार देखते हैं वह राजनैतिक लोगों का एक कार्य करने का स्थान हो गया है। तो यह हमारे लिए बहुत दुर्भाग्य की बात है। फिर भी हमें कुछ सकारात्मक बातें भी देखती हैं कि इस धम्म क्रांति के बाद हमारे समाज में बहुत ही परिवर्तन आया है और हम ऐसी आशा भी करते हैं कि परिवर्तन के साथ साथ हमारे समाज में जो एकता है उसको हमें दृढ़ करना चाहिए। हम व्यक्तिगत स्वार्थ छोड़कर हमें कुछ समाज के लिए भी कार्य करना चाहिए। जैसे कि आपकी यह जो संस्था है अम्बेडकर एसोसिएशन ऑफ नॉर्थ अमेरिका, यह संस्था समाज के कुछ लोगों के लिए काम तो कर रही है, परंतु इसको जो है सामान्य लोगों तक पहुंचाने के लिए हमें कुछ अलग ढंग से भी काम करना चाहिए। इसकी भी हमें बहुत आवश्यकता है, क्योंकि आज हम इस माध्यम से जिनके पास कंप्यूटर उपलब्ध है या कुछ अच्छा फोन, मोबाइल फोन उपलब्ध है, हम उनके पास ही अपने विचार पहुंचा सकते हैं। परंतु सही में जो सामान्य लोग हैं उनके पास भी यह बातें पहुंचाना बहुत जरूरी है। इसके लिए हमें कुछ अलग से भी काम करना चाहिए। और दूसरी महत्वपूर्ण बात है कि इस आधुनिक बौद्ध भारत में बाबा साहब का जिस प्रकार से सामान्य लोगों के ऊपर प्रभाव है या लिखे पढ़े लोगों के ऊपर भी जो प्रभाव है वह प्रभाव बहुत अच्छी तरह से पड़ा है। परंतु बाबा साहब ने जिस आशा के तौर पर, जिस उद्देश्य को लेकर बुद्ध धर्म की दीक्षा हमारे लोगों को दी, उस उद्देश्य को सफल करने के लिए हमें बहुत ज्यादा काम करने की आवश्यकता है। और जो धर्म का कार्य है वह बिना त्याग किए हुए नहीं हो सकता। इसमें श्रद्धा बहुत प्रबल होनी चाहिए। बिना श्रद्धा के हम धर्म का काम भी नहीं कर सकते। हमारा विश्वास भी होना चाहिए, बहुत तगड़ा विश्वास जो है बुद्ध के विचारों पर, बुद्ध के ऊपर जो है हमारा पूरी तरह से विश्वास होना चाहिए। तभी जाके हम धर्म का काम कर सकते हैं। बिना विश्वास के, बिना श्रद्धा के हम धर्म का काम कभी नहीं कर सकते। और इसकी जो
भंते जी थोड़ा सॉरी, थोड़ा इंटरप्ट कर रहे हैं, थोड़ा यहाँ पे टाइम का कंस्टेंट है थोड़ा मीटिंग में। तो भंते जी अपन नेक्स्ट वीक भी कंटिन्यू करेंगे सिमिलर धम्म टाक। तो लेकिन भंते जी आपके धम्म टाक के ऊपर काफी लोग को क्वेश्चन है, तो वो थोड़ा क्वेश्चन आंसर सेशन 5 मिनट होगा अभी। तो सॉरी टू इंटरप्ट भंते जी, बट वी हैव द टाइम कंस्टेंट and there is a scheduled speaker also after your talk. So thank you Bhante ji, but can you please go ahead and ask any questions to Bhante ji? Today Bhante ji talk about Baba Saheb 22 प्रतिज्ञा और भंते जी ने बताया कि काफी जो इंडिया में इंस्टीट्यूशन है काफी स्वार्थ के लिए काम करते हैं, तो और बाबा साहब को मानते हैं और बुद्धा को कम मानते हैं। इसके बारे में भी भंते जी ने थोड़ा हाईलाइट दी है। तो प्लीज गो हेड, एनी क्वेश्चंस टू एनीवन?
भंते जी, मैं विनया न्यूयॉर्क से। आर यू गाइस एबल टू हियर मी?
यस।
ओके, तो भंते जी नमो बुद्धाय। आज आपने बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण बात की कि बुद्ध धम्म का प्रसार हमको करना ही है। अपने ही लोगों में नहीं तो बल्कि दूसरे कम्युनिटी के लोगों के में भी बुद्ध धम्म का प्रसार होना चाहिए। कि बाबा साहब का जो सपना था प्रबुद्ध भारत, वो हमको डेफिनेटली पूरा करना है। तो अभी भंते जी हमने देखा कि 13 अक्टूबर को गुजरात में काफी बड़ा कन्वर्शन हुआ एंड उसमें काफी लोगों ने दीक्षा ली, धम्म की दीक्षा ली, और उसका हम रिकॉर्डिंग भी देखा हम लोगों ने इधर अमेरिका में। तो हम सोच रहे थे भंते जी, वैसे अगर प्रोग्राम हम कर सकते हैं तो हम पूरे सहायता से यहाँ से अमेरिका से कुछ भी सहायता लगेगी तो हम करने के लिए तैयार है। तो आई थिंक ये आपने आज जो महत्वपूर्ण बात की वो हम आगे लेते हैं, एक स्ट्रक्चर्ड प्रोग्राम करते हैं। हमारा एक प्रोजेक्ट हम शुरू कर रहे हैं, एम्ब्रेसिंग बुद्धिज्म। उसमें भंते जी हमको आपके आइडियाज चाहिए और हमारी तरफ से हम क्या कर सकते हैं इसके लिए भी हम बात कर सकते हैं। और जो अभी हमने गुजरात में देखा वैसे हमको बहुत प्रोग्राम करना है, तो उसके लिए क्या क्या कैसे वो ऑपरेशनलाइज कैसे हुआ, वो प्रोग्राम कैसे क्या हो सका इतने बड़े पैमाने पे आज के दिन में गुजरात में, वो भी तो ऐसा, ये तो बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण बात है कि हमको ऐसे प्रोग्राम करने हैं और हमको आपसे बात करनी है भंते जी। मैं भी अभी नहीं तो आपके कुछ अगर थॉट्स है तो उस पर आप बोलेंगे तो अच्छा होगा कि कैसे कर सकते हैं हम ये।
हेलो।
हाँ हाँ बनते जी बोलिए। हाय।
हाँ, तो हमने जो अपने गुजरात के बारे में उनके द्वारा सुना है, तो यहाँ भी बहुत उसकी चर्चा हुई है। गुजरात में जो धर्मांतरण हुआ है, ऐसे धर्मांतरण तो बहुत जो है भारत में हुए हैं, अभी महाराष्ट्र में भी हुए हैं। लेकिन बात धर्मांतरण के बाद उन लोगों को क्या करना है, उनको किस प्रकार की शिक्षा देनी है, कौन उनको शिक्षा देगा, कौन उनको बुद्ध धर्म के बारे में बताएगा। सबसे पहली बात यह तो है कि जो महार कामरिक कम्युनिटी है, जिसको बाबा साहब ने बुद्ध धर्म की दीक्षा दी है, उनका कहाँ तक प्रभाव बुद्ध धर्म के ऊपर है, उनका कहाँ तक आचरण है, यह भी तो बात महत्वपूर्ण है। ठीक है कि वो पॉजिटिव हमें कुछ दिखाई देता है कि गुजरात में बहुत सारे लोगों ने धर्म दीक्षा लिया, धर्मांतरण किया है, लेकिन उसके बाद क्या? महाराष्ट्र में भी जो है माने हैं, उतरे हैं, इन लोगों ने भी धर्म दीक्षा लिया, धर्मांतर किया। तो उसके बाद तो बुद्ध धर्म का प्रभाव तो उनके ऊपर है ही नहीं, क्योंकि हमारे पास जो फोर्स होनी चाहिए उनको बुद्ध धर्म सिखाने की, बुद्ध धर्म बताने की, वैसे लोग, वैसे सिस्टम जो है हमारे पास तो बिल्कुल है ही नहीं। ये तो वन वे ट्रैफिक हो गया कि कुछ लोग आ गए और उन्होंने धर्मांतरण कर लिए, लेकिन उसके बाद तो कुछ भी नहीं हो रहा है। जैसे बाबा साहब जाने के बाद हमारा हो रहा है, इसके बारे में भी हमें सोचना है कि पहले हमें कुछ सिस्टम जो है हमारे में डेवलप करनी चाहिए। हमें कुछ आगे आना चाहिए कि ऐसे कुछ लोग जो है सीखे, कुछ इंस्टीट्यूशन में रहते, उसको कुछ पढ़ाने वाले कुछ प्रकार के लोग हों, तब जाके इस धर्मांतरण का जो है पॉजिटिव हम फ्यूचर में देख सकते हैं। अन्यथा उन्होंने धर्मांतरण कर लिया, अभी क्या कर रहे किसी को पता नहीं है, कौन उनको बता रहा है, कौन उनको शिक्षा दे रहा है, उसके बारे में भी हमें कुछ पता नहीं है। तो यह भी बातें है, हम एक तरफ से नहीं देखना चाहिए, हमें दूसरी तरफ से भी सोचना चाहिए कि उन्होंने धर्मांतरण तो कर लिया, लेकिन अभी उसके बाद क्या, वो क्या करने वाले हैं, इस प्रकार से धम्म का जीवन जीने वाले हैं, यह भी हमें सोचना है। इसलिए हमें कुछ कंस्ट्रक्टिव काम जो है, वर्क जो है, ऐसे कुछ लोग निर्माण करना है, कुछ भिक्षु निर्माण करना है, इसकी वजह से जो है वो वहाँ जाकर काम भी कर सकते हैं उस समाज में, उन लोगों में। तो इसके बारे में भी हमें सोचना चाहिए।
थैंक यू पंते जी। पंते जी आपका फोन नंबर मैंने पोस्ट किया है और आपका ईमेल एड्रेस, किसी को क्वेश्चन रहा इसके बारे में तो ऑफलाइन भी बात करेंगे आपके साथ।
चलेगा, बिल्कुल चलेगा।
एनी अदर शॉर्ट क्वेश्चन टू Bhante ji before going to the next speaker? Bhante ji, there is one question though. आपने DVD बनाया है चिरंतन सत्य। Some people wants to know कि वो अभी DVD वो इंडिया में बिक रही है कि यानी सर्कुलेशन में है कि?
सर्कुलेशन में है वो। हाँ, तो आप मुझे एड्रेस भेज दो, मैं आपको भेज दूंगा। वो DVD है, धम्मपद के ऊपर पाली एंड हिंदी ट्रांसलेशन।
ओके
तो आपको भेज सकता हूँ, कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है। आप वहाँ पे कॉपी भी कर सकते हो उसका।
अगेन Bhante जी, दिस इज नॉट द एंड, आप कंटिन्यू थोड़ा सपोर्ट दीजिए, हम लोग भी काफी सीख रहे हैं डेली। हम हर वीक में धम्म का सीख रहे हैं यहाँ पे ये कॉल में। तो आपका कनेक्शन अच्छा रहता तो अभी तो ऑनलाइन देख सकते हैं, लेकिन मैंने आपका पिक्चर पोस्ट किया है, आप देख सकते हैं सपोर्ट। Bhante जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर कमिंग टुडे, बहुत अच्छा लगा। और अभी इसके बाद हम टॉक है और एक टॉक चल है, इसके बाद स्पीकर है जो कि इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ बुद्धिस्ट प्रवीण भालेसन करके हैं, वो प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ बहुजन इम्प्रूवमेंट ट्रस्ट इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ बुद्धिस्ट स्टडीज। उनका पाली लैंग्वेज के ऊपर काफी प्रचार प्रसार चल रहा है उधर, तो वो अभी इसके बारे में वो टॉक करेंगे। तो Bhante जी, आपको थोड़ा रहना है तो आप इस कॉल पे रह सकते हैं और सुन सकते हैं, नहीं तो हम आपसे फिर से मिलेंगे।
ठीक है, मेरी इच्छा है उनको सुनने के लिए।
सुनने की इच्छा है तो बनते जी मैं आप स्पीकर ऑन करता हूँ। Praveen, can you, sorry, Praveen, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm going to, yeah. Praveen, can you share your desktop, if you don't mind, and share your PowerPoint presentation?
Share, yeah, but share one sec. This is visible,
Sandeep,
share.
Yeah, Sandeep is going to give you the presenter right now.
Yeah.
Sandeep, go ahead.
Am I audible to everybody?
Yes.
Sure. So Mahesh, you are currently the presenter, so you will have to make him the presenter actually.
Yeah, can you please make me a host, Sandeep? You are the, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I have made Praveen.
Okay. You can change the host position there. Okay. Praveen, right now you are the presenter. Go ahead.
Yes, I have clicked on the share desktop.
And we can see your desktop, yes. बंते जी भी सुन रहे हैं आपकी बातें। बंते जी नागपुर से ज्वाइन हुए हैं।
Yeah, so today I would like to start on the topic itself. So we should have some time to questions and answers.
Yes,
I will prefer English, Hindi, Marathi, whichever language you want. So please be comfortable to stop me or question me anytime you wish. Should I go ahead?
Yes, Praveen, go ahead. Yeah, Praveen, go ahead.
Yeah. So I hope you all are on the first slide, Buddhist studies and role of Ambedkar Buddhist. Second slide, the introduction. The moment I say we have an institute named Indian Institute of Buddhist Studies, most of the people say, yes, even we have Pali language classes. And just few minutes back, I think somebody, Mahesh or somebody said, yes, he is doing some Pali language training. Am I right?
Yes, yeah.
So this is the problem with the Buddhist studies. Buddhist studies doesn't mean only Pali language. Studying Pali is very necessary, but not the end of acquiring all Buddhist knowledge. Pali can certainly help you to understand early Buddhist texts of Tipitaka, but Buddhist knowledge is like an ocean and difficult for common man to understand and interpret. A Bible-like book is necessary to. So finally, Baba Sahib wrote a book, The Buddha and His Dhamma, for guiding people towards Dhamma. As well as he wrote Buddha Puja Path as common man's daily ritual needs. He wrote many things. I am giving you only few examples. Now, what is Buddhist studies? It is certainly not Pali. So I have given few examples. Buddhist studies is an interdisciplinary faculty. It is not in language. It is not in only in language, or it is not in only in arts or history. But when I say Buddhist studies, it has a study of all languages, canonical languages like Pali, Tibetan, Chinese, Buddhist hybrid Sanskrit. And then we have to study a lot of different scripts like Ashokan Pali. People call it Brahmi, but the person who deciphered the script, you might have heard about this Ashokan because I know the audience is very much aware of the basics. So the Ashokan pillar and Ashokan script, everybody knows that. So people call it Brahmi language, but the person who deciphered that script, his name was James Prinsep. James Prinsep deciphered that script. And then later on people, he named that Ashokan Pali, but some people later on named it as Brahmi. So study of scripts. Then study of political history. Political history means what? The kings and queens and ruling dynasties. For example, we have Ajanta cave, we have Bhaje Bedse cave, we have a lot of caves. But what is who were the kings who constructed it? That is the political history. And most of the time, history people write it is about only the different dynasties: Gupta king, Harsha king, and many kings, Buddhist king, non-Buddhist king, like that. But there is also second faculty coming up, that is study of social history. When we say social history, it doesn't mean that when Gupta were king in 4th century, the society was not Buddhist. The majority society was a Buddhist society. If you read the Untouchables written by Baba Sahib, then we can find that 4th century is a very important century where the practice of the untouchability has been originated according to Baba Sahib. Then study of archaeology. Archaeology is very important because we have archaeological proofs are considered as primary references So if you want to prove something that 100 years back or 1000 years back we had this society, we were Buddhist, according to Dr. Ambedkar, the untouchables were the original Buddhist. Well, how to prove? It has a lot of things: social history, political history, archaeology, then social science. Social science means Buddhist studies has to do his task with this society. It is not for only for some kind of philosophical or only few people. It is for everybody. So a study of social sciences. Then study of Buddhist economy. People fight on a lot of economical things, like there are capitalists, there are communists, and there are a lot of things. But even Buddhists have some ideas about economy. So Buddhist studies is also study of. Am I too fast?
No,
Hello.
no. Go ahead.
Yeah, if I am running, please stop me, because I think I have a short time.
No. Go ahead. We have time.
So
Go ahead.
it is also study of different Buddhist traditions. Now, when we say traditions, there are many, like Theravada tradition, Mahayana tradition, the new tradition in the West. A lot of Western people are becoming Buddhist in Germany, in UK, in America. So they have their own need, and according to their own need, they have interpreted Buddhism in their country. So in the East as well as West. And the fastest growing tradition, which I must mention, that is the Ambedkar Buddhist tradition. And I am not just saying it is. I have already written one paper of Buddhist ethics and social development in 2008. It was published in IABA conference in Bangkok. In that I have mentioned a lot of things. How the fastest growing tradition is Buddhist tradition of Baba Sahib. Then next is study of applications of this Buddhist tradition to social needs, economical needs, democratic needs. For example, I must say that Baba Sahib said the equality, liberty, fraternity. The Western people will always say it's French phenomena, it's French ideas. But what Baba Sahib said, that equality, liberty, fraternity, I have borrowed these ideas not from French Revolution. I have borrowed these ideas from my master Buddha. So the American or European people think that equality, the liberty, equality, fraternity is French idea, but Baba Sahib said it is from Buddha's teaching, and that is where the Buddhist studies comes. So we have to understand all these social, archaeological, economical, democratic principle, and many things. So I can give you a lot of examples, but first that we will go for the next slide. I am on the why Ambedkarites for Buddhist studies. Now here the role comes. Are you all on the next slide? Can you see the next slide? Why Ambedkarites for Buddhist studies? So if we follow bhakti, devotion path for Dr. Ambedkar, then it is sure that his mission will be ruined. People, at least in this meeting, don't need more elaboration on this point, because bhakti and devotion, okay, emotions are there, but how we should carry what Baba Sahib wanted. Even Manteji question few minutes back, he was questioning what to do, how to do, and there are a lot of things to do. Now the new generations, for example, the third generation, fourth generation, or our kids, will understand Baba Sahib Ambedkar Buddhist mission only through books and studies. So there is no only emotion, and even if emotion is there, the emotion may lead to only bhakti and devotion, and can lead to a blind faith, and again ruining the faith which Baba Sahib has changed, and a lot of things he has introduced into it. Now some Pali scholars claim that studying Pali Tipitaka is the only or true Dhamma, because some Pali scholars claim that Vishuddhimagga is the only Dhamma. Some people say Eightfold Path is the only Dhamma. Now if I ask these same Pali scholars, which volume of Baba Sahib Ambedkar have you read? The answer most of the time is none, because I have spoken with hundreds of people, and I have debated with many people. There are 22 volumes of Baba Sahib writing and speeches. Baba Sahib was not like others to claim that the final authority, even after writing the magnum opus, the Buddha and Dhamma. He kept space for study and inquiry, but forced everybody to interpret teachings of Dhamma in a socially engaged way and applicable to modern world, keeping its essence as it is. So I never understood, especially Indian people claim to be Buddhist scholars without reading and understanding even one volume of Baba Sahib Ambedkar. So in India you will find many Buddhist scholars in many universities like Delhi University, Banaras Hindu University, Pune University, Somaya Center for Buddhist Studies, or Rajasthan. In every university of this country, the UGC has introduced Buddhist Studies as a department, and they are giving a lot of money. So the money is spent very well. They are audited very well, but I never understood. Without reading a single volume of Baba Saheb Ambedkar, all these professors claim to be Buddhist scholars. So I must say that so-called Buddhist scholars should read and understand at least his texts and writings related to Buddhism and other traditions such as Vedic tradition, Hinduism, Islam. If you see, Baba Saheb wrote on partition of India or Pakistan. He wrote riddles in Hinduism. He wrote the Buddha and his Dhamma. He wrote Buddha and Karnas and many things. Now the situation of Buddhist studies inside India. Buddhist studies is not Pali, it has many things, archaeology, social science, everything just I said few minutes back. Now what is the situation? In many state-funded universities, there are Pali department or so-called Pali or Buddhist scholars are available. 99% of them are not practicing Buddhist. Most of them come. Hello? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, most of them come from caste Hindu background who are well paid, or I feel overpaid by the government for misinterpreting Buddhist teaching and carry their anti-Ambedkar agenda. So UGC has funded all these universities where there are many professors. They claim to be big scholars, and 99% of them are not Buddhist. This is the ground reality in every university. Now the caste Hindu professors who are labeled as great Buddhist scholars from Delhi University, Pune University, Somaya Center for Buddhist Studies Mumbai, Banaras Hindu University, don't like even to talk about Dr. Ambedkar and forget about reading and understanding his Buddhist interpretation. Now Indian Sanskritists are very biased towards any Buddhist revival, and with huge government funds or billions of dollars, they are carrying their anti-Ambedkar agenda. So in a country of more than 1 billion population, very few scheduled castes have reached to some Pali studies. Even these people are do not read Baba Saheb Ambedkar. So there are few Ambedkar studies department or chairs, but the situation is more pathetic. So in my points, there are some problems. I learn or rearrange these few points. I think in the PPT they have gone up and down, but I will correct that. So finally, you cannot count. I can count on fingers who can write Ambedkar Buddhist tradition in international journals or conferences. So this is the situation in 21st century of a 1 billion population country in these universities. If you go to Thailand or any Buddhist country, there are Buddhist universities. If you read our own history, there was a Nalanda, Buddhist traditional history, Takshashila, Amravati, and many other universities, because universities carry the education and they impart the knowledge for future generations. That is what my first slide I said, why we need Buddhist studies, because our next generations will question us. The children and the young generation will not blindly believe something. Even if they believe because of their parents, they must understand what was the interpretation, what Baba Saheb gave us for this modern world. Now the situation of Buddhist studies outside India about Buddhism in India. If you go outside India, you people are there in America, you people are there in Europe, some people are somewhere in different countries. People always confuse with Sanskrit, Vedic and Hindu interpretation with Buddhist meaning. This is very important point I would like to stress. So many common terms and terminologies mislead the meaning of many texts and practices. I have given two examples. Best examples are Bhagava. For cost Hindu, Bhagava means saffronization. आम्ही महाराष्ट्रावर भगवा फडकवू, म्हणजे ते भगवा झेंडा लावणार आहेत. But the actual meaning of Bhagava is Buddha. If you read any Pali text, Bhagava comes, the blessed one said, the Bhagava said, असं त्याच्यामध्ये रेफरन्स आहे. म्हणजे भगवा म्हणजे बुद्ध. आणि ज्यावेळेस आपल्या भारताचा झेंडा तयार झाला, when the Indian flag committee was there, Baba Saheb Ambedkar was the chairman of the flag committee. So Savarkar and his people. Pardon?
Sorry to interrupt. There are some people cannot understand Marathi. Can you speak in Hindi also?
Sorry. Okay. I will prefer English and Hindi. The best example is Bhagava. So for this is the problem with the current meaning. जो आज की तारीख में शब्दों के meaning जो है fix हो गए. तो भगवा का मतलब सैफ्रनाइजेशन, महाराष्ट्र के विधानसभा पे भगवा लगाएंगे या कल आने वाले लोकसभा पे भगवा लगाने वाले पार्लियामेंट पे, लेकिन एक्चुअल भगवा शब्द का मीनिंग बुद्धा होता है। दैट इज व्हाट देयर इन पाली टेक्स्ट एंड आवर इंटरप्रिटेशन। हम वी आर ब्रॉट अप इन हिंदू कल्चर, हमारे आजू बाजू में वही है, स्कूल में वही पढ़ाया जाता है, तो मैं भी वही सोचता था। आई अंडरस्टूड भगवा एज अ बुद्धा व्हेन आई स्टडीड पाली, when I went to Oxford to study Pali under Professor Richard Gombrich. After that, I clarified a lot of these things. The another word came is sati. अभी सती का मतलब क्या है सबको पता है, हमारे यहाँ मीनिंग क्या होता है सती का? Anybody? As I said, sati means burning a widow.
Correct.
Burning a widow, but that is not a Buddhist meaning.
Praveen, sati means burning of wife with husband when he dies.
That is why I said burning of a widow. Widow means a woman whose husband is died.
Correct.
Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
So are you getting? The sati means burning of a widow woman, means whose husband is died. Okay. Now you also answered sati means widow, but that is not the real meaning in Buddhist text. The sati is development of mindfulness. This was a shocking thing when I was studying this, this Pali course, where the Western people are saying, no, Praveen, sati means the development of mindfulness in Buddhist tradition, and they were talking a lot on that topic. But when I was the only odd man out there, because all the 13 people, one was from Israel, one was from Australia, one was from, other country, and we all were studying Pali under Professor Richard Gombrich. And on this sati word, I was claiming the same thing, which just one of somebody said. Sati means burning a woman whose husband is died, but that is not the real meaning. So now this is a big challenge for us. A lot of traditional words in our culture, wherever we call it, whatever culture you call it, we are Hindu majority country or Vedic majority country, whatever you call it, that is not an issue. But this has been changed. So we must understand that our practices has been like a parasite. Those meanings have been changed. Now, I have personally debated with many professors from many universities like Oxford, Harvard, London, Berkeley, Naropa, you name any university, Bonn, Heidelberg, Mahachula, Thammasat, Kyoto, many. Now, most of the Western people live in their own spiritual fantasies. That is the problem with the Western scholars, because their problem is not equality, liberty, and fraternity in Germany. They are already forwarded, and America is already a developed nation. So their need is different. Their spiritual quest or inner quest is the priority. For them, developing a democratic society may not be the priority, or a healthy society, but for them, their inner quest is the problem. Now, when I go and talk to the Eastern people of Thailand, Burma, and many countries, they are in bhakti or devotion. Bhakti means they are devotional. So there are thousands of Christian missionary educational institutions in India or many part of the world. But neither the spiritual Western nor the devotional Eastern Buddhists feel that there is a need of promoting Buddhist education. So that is why in Pune or in Nagpur you will have a best school will be a convent school. There will be never a monk or a nun running a best school in a that quality where or a Buddhist lay person, not only monks or nuns, but lay person establishing. In Maharashtra, that is happening now because of the impact of Dr. Ambedkar's interpretation. But overall, I say there are few Buddhist charities and we must salute them. But compared to Christian missionary institutions, they are nothing. So this is a serious problem that we don't have Buddhist education, and just in few examples I have told you how we are confused because of our upbringing. It's not you and me, it's we. We have done the mistake. Even I was talking the same thing in front of the this very different group of people who were in Pali and Buddhist studies, but better knowledgeable than us, and their interpretations were very good and right to the meaning. But now when we come to Buddhist studies and Ambedkar Buddhist tradition, so it is based on the teachings of Buddhist revivalists of Baba Saheb Ambedkar.
Hey, Praveen.
Pardon?
Praveen, one second. If we go back, I have a question, quick question, okay? This is Vinaya from New York.
Yeah, you can stop me anytime if it is okay for you. No problem. I don't want to avoid. Yeah.
Yeah. So Praveen, I mean, you are bringing very good points here. But one of the things, and things like how some words, I think this mindfulness, which was there in Buddhist literature as a mindfulness, right, Sati word. All these things are later, I think, corrupt by Hindus, associating them with the bad things. Okay. Having said that, if we really see the Buddhism that has emerged in India, at least it's only after Baba Sahib. So our I think our fight, I would say, is just 50 years old, right? Compared to, if we compare it to the Christian movement, which is like 1,000 years old, right? So I think we never have to get disheartened. We know where we stand, but efforts like you and us, we are doing. We just have to get it forward and don't try to bring negativity as much as possible. We have to think on the positive side of it, that 50 years, yes, we have achieved this much, we have a way forward to go, and we'll keep going forward. We'll keep marching forward. I think that should be the, views that we should take forward. Just wanted to add, okay? You can go ahead with your presentation.
Okay. And now just to add your points, as I have given these two examples like Bhagavar Sati, and why I give these two examples, that you should, the audience listening here should also understand how the things are misrepresented. It was not to fuse any negativity, but it was to give some examples that even though we are 50-year-old or very small, our mission is started. But the problem is that we have to counter this 1,000-year-old corruption.
Absolutely.
The intellectual corruption, the textual corruption, because our next generation should not say the same thing which I said or the another fellow said. So that was the intention behind giving these examples. And that is why we need Buddhist studies. And here the lady whichever said now, I am very happy that you commented, because such people are necessary when some kind of debates and discussions and interpretations happens. Because finally these are the universities or the academic institutions which teach something to the next generation. If such corruption reaches to New York State University or the Michigan University, same corruption will be taught to the next generation. So this is good thing that because of this area, this new area of Buddhist studies, we can address such issues. And even though we are small, we are very much, we have the direction, but the direction has to put into paper and the research work.
Yep.
Now I'll go to the next Buddhist studies and Ambedkar Buddhist studies. And I tell you, I have a lot of discussions with the Thai, Western, Eastern people. So the first question a European will ask you is always, which tradition you follow? A Japanese, a Theravada, or a Mahayana, or many things. So they are always a big question, because they are very specific to the word meaning, and sometimes you feel irritating, but sometimes it is also useful the way people write down the things. For example, I want to give one example, that the discovery of the Buddha's teaching in India was done by few British people. The British digged out some lot of things, viharas and the pillars, and they did a lot of hard work. Tremendous hard work in the 18th and 19th century. After 1850, it was most of the time, because 1796 AD, 1796, Royal Asiatic Society of Bengal. Asiatic Society of Bengal was established, and the Asiatic Society was collecting all the documents and proofs and whatever they could find. The British found a lot of things, and they didn't know what is that, and they deciphered, they discovered, and that is why today you and me can understand there was Ashoka or there was a Buddhist tradition. But these people digged out and brought in front of us. Now, when these things were going on, Asiatic Society, after latter tradition, there are a lot of stop, and there is a lot of the educational and this research oriented thing which James Prinsep or Wilson and many scholars did in India. And once the British left, obviously again we came back to the same place where the research, the interpretations, and lot of work has to be done. So now before we go, what has to be done? As the lady said, I would like to say why you said like that, because Baba Sahib also wanted to give us some direction before when we present Buddhism to Europeans or Americans or Easterns or our own children. he also has his own ideas. Now, in the unpublished preface of the Buddha and Dhamma, it is available on Columbia University site. If you want, I can show you that. He wrote in unpublished preface that understanding Buddhism, for the proper understanding of Buddhism, one should read. First book is Buddha and Karl Marx. Second was Revolution and Counter-Revolution in Ancient India, and the Buddha and his Dhamma. I hope in this meeting people might have read the Buddha and Dhamma. There will be few who have read this Revolution and Counter-Revolution, and there will be another few too who have wrote this Buddha and Karl Marx. Now the confusion here is that Baba Sahib said before publishing Buddha and Dhamma, because the Buddha and his Dhamma was published after his Nirvana. After his death, the Buddha and his Dhamma was published, and that was the problem, because when the people published, they didn't know what was there in the unprefaced, and only that one book was published, and rest of the texts were published after 1980, when in Maharashtra government started publishing. So it was published very, very late. So most of the writing and speeches came to the people in a very, very late period, after 80, after 90. And after internet, at least people got something to read. After 95, people got something to read on online. But if you read, those online texts were not e-books, so it was they were not regarded as authentic references by the academic world. There is a problem in academics that you need a book. The book should have a proper reference. The book should have a lot of things. So I will tell you my experience. When I was in Oxford, and the guy said, the professor said, Praveen, I have read Buddha and Dhamma. Okay, I have read it. But there are no references to it. But I was not a guy to listen. I said, okay, professor, I understand. The text was published in 1957. So obviously the people didn't care of this academic standard to put the references to every line. But there is one scholar in America. Her name is Madam Adele Fiske. So Madam Adele Fiske did his MA thesis on Buddha and Dhamma and his references. Then the professor was happy. He said, yes, Praveen, can you bring the references? Then again I had to come back to India. I found that book. I found that small booklet that the references of Pali Tipitaka and Buddhist literature in the Buddha and his Dhamma, written by American scholar Madam Adele Fiske. So Madam Adele Fiske has done that work in very late, it's around after the 80s or something like that. So with that book we can understand the Buddha and Dhamma itself is a very authentic text. The only problem was it was not presented in an authentic manner, because if you read the early book, if you read Riddles in Hinduism, if you read Baba Sahib's any book, on every line there is a reference. There is a reference of you say any text, Buddhist text, Hindu text, Islamic text, Judaic text, Christian text. So when he was writing, he used to write and give all the references, everything. So the problem is that our people are not studying the way he presented. Now, out of us, we have to understand with this his basic guidelines. So I was the guy who went through all these books and I was able to write a lot of things. Now the next challenge in front of us is that, as I said, for the propagation and protection of Dhamma and the innocent people who are falling in the traps of Vedic and Kastiya spiritual people such as ISKCON and many others, we must study and understand what Baba Sahib wrote about different things, like what is Chaturvarna, what is graded inequality, what is the difference between Savarna and Avarna people, what is the difference between Savarna, Sudras and Avarna untouchable, what is the difference between class and caste. Most of the Europeans are highly confused, or our people in India, the anti-Buddhist, anti-Ambedkar are very happy to confuse them between class and caste. They say, look, in your country also you have poor people, you have rich people. So in our Varnashram Dharma also we have this class, that class, warrior class. So these are the areas where we must study. So there is one Buddha and Karl Marx which I said. Now people see this problem of Maoism, communism, violence and tribals becoming and taking up guns. But nobody wants to read what Baba Sahib said about Buddha and Karl Marx. What is the solution for the problem? So in 2009 I have published one paper on this, the comparison between Buddhist methods and communist methods, which Baba Sahib said, and said what he said in 1956 is happening today. 1959 Tibet was fallen to China, Cambodia was gone to communist, Vietnam was becoming communist, Cambodia killed millions of people, and China killed in around 3 crore people. So a lot of things which Baba Sahib wrote in 1956 has happened after the his demise in last 50 years. So we have to study all these things and we have to interpret and present all these things in front of our generations. Now I have only mentioned this point because there is a time limit, so I am not talking on all these topics. But when I say Buddhist studies in Ambedkar tradition, this everything comes as a package. So Ambedkar Buddhists play a very important role in all above areas because neither the Western nor the Eastern scholarship is being developed, and it is not their mistake and it is neither positive or negative sense, but we have to develop this scholarship. Otherwise, if we don't develop this scholarship who understand what Baba Sahib has written on different topics, for example, the riddles in Hinduism. Riddles in Hinduism, our people should be very good in that. Now, when I say the Savarna, Shudras and Avarna untouchables, Baba Sahib wrote volume number 7. Baba Sahib writing a speeches volume number 7. Now, coming to the point, these 3 books are very confusing. The Buddha and Dhamma is volume number 9, but the Revolution and Counter Revolution and Buddha and Karl Marx you find in Baba Sahib writing a speeches volume number 3. Now, nobody knows that something published in volume number 3 has a connection which is published somewhere in the volume number 9 or 10. There is also volume what Gandhi and Congress have done to untouchable. So we have to see this as a package for promoting Buddhist studies, or Buddhist this Buddhist studies is necessary for promoting the new ideas which Baba Sahib Ambedkar put forward in front of the society. So with this study, we can present in front of our community or in front of anybody that the Buddhism is necessary in the 21st century because of these reasons. And if there are some, like in Banteji's lecture, Banteji also said that there was some conflict within monks and the downfall of Buddhism happened. This is correct statement he made. But there are many things that we can found in Revolution and Counter Revolution, how the primitive tribes became scheduled civilized society, and how the civil society was destroyed by a barbaric society, and how the barbaric society could create its own Varnashram Dharma to rule the majority people of India. Now, when we say the difference between class and caste, as I said, the European class system is different because that is why the Marx and communists could work there. It's based on economy. But the caste and class are different things. As Baba Sahib said, that class is only division of labor, but caste is not only division of labor, but it is also division of laborers. And there are a lot of things. So, where I would like to stress the stress is more on how we study and how we interpret all the writing and speeches towards achieving the Buddhist mission of Baba Sahib Ambedkar. So with this request, I am not exploring all the topics because I will not take your a lot of time. We can have different lectures for different topics, and I can also give you some of the papers which I have published that might be helpful. So if you have any questions, anything, my intention here was to tell you the role of our people in the field of Buddhist studies, because of these are very important to preserve his teachings through study and education, and through the study and education we can promote and propagate into the newer generation. So if you have any questions, you can ask me.
Hey Praveen, this is Vinaya again. Definitely this is very good work I think you guys are doing. One of the things I wanted to know was, is this like a post-graduation university? What kind of, if you could explain the structure of how this works, IIBS?
Yeah. I must tell you, IIBS started as in 2007 with, this Oxford friends and they guided, so I decided to set up an institute. But it is private institute for a few years. Then the next challenge is to become a mainstream institute. I must tell you people that the academic framework is very fixed. As long as you are not connected to a university, whatever you see is not accepted in the mainstream society. That is a problem. That is why I got affiliation of University of Pune. So it was a big challenging process, getting an affiliation of University of Pune. It took 2 years, but finally we got the affiliation of University of Pune to run some certificate courses.
Okay.
So currently we are affiliated with the University of Pune, and we are the only and first institution which is more on conferences, projects and research projects. Okay, so on one side we have to get affiliation of the university to have a label. Okay, we are in the mainstream education system.
Sure.
But the next challenge is that Pune University will not teach you what Baba Sahib wrote.
Yeah.
So there is no syllabus, there is no book who will teach you riddles in Hinduism. So I don't know. I assure you, I don't think in any university will have a syllabus that they will have a book for reference. You have done IT or you have done medical, whatever graduation you people have done. You have used many reference books in your syllabus, but the university will not have this thing in the syllabus. So that is why one institute has to be there, but it has to have run private projects also. So the research projects means, for example, I am doing one project on the Pali translation of one text. Okay, so we did it successfully and we submitted it to the University of Pune itself. Then another project I was doing for Baba Saheb Ambedkar's stay in Bonn, Germany. I have published a book with the original text. So I had to go to University of Bonn to collect all the original documents, and we brought the original documents to publish to Pune. And then one professor, Dr. Martin Fuchs from Erfurt University in Germany, he came to Pune to publish the book. Now we have all the original writings, which Baba Saheb, how he took admission, this, that, lot of things. So such kind of research projects are necessary. So my answer to, I think, Madam Vinay's question is that on one side we don't have to get a degree, formal degree. Okay, but you can get a formal degree. Right now I am also supporting 2 PhD students in different universities. One PhD student has gone to Sanskrit University, and second student which has come to me, I send her to some Sri Lankan university. Okay. So degree you will get it. Don't worry about degree. PhD or MA or PhD, 100% you will get it. In my institute, a lot of people got degrees of certificate courses and Pune University degree. Some people got, this Sanskrit University degree. So getting a degree of university is not a difficult. The challenging part is that they will not teach you what I am talking here or what we people want to study and teach others. So this has to be done by the research projects. Now research projects are not don't need any kind of a label. A research project can be funded by anybody, can be done by institute, but it has to have a institute. That is the problem. And then institute can run different projects. As I said, I got the original text and published. If you have some idea in mind, there are some we conduct some Brahmi script course. Why we conducted that course? Because in Nashik there is a cave. In that cave something is written, and that was misinterpreted by many people, because when they read Brahmi script, what they say, oh, it's a Sanskrit, it's Sanskrit, everything is Sanskrit. So they read, I tell you, if you write something in Devanagari, it will never be Marathi. It can be Sanskrit, it can be Marathi, or it can be Hindi. So when we write something in Devanagari, it doesn't mean it is always Hindi or it is always Sanskrit. Same thing with Brahmi script. Now these people, they read something in Brahmi script and they say it's Sanskrit, and they took all wrong meaning. So when we interpret the same Brahmi script into Pali, it has a beautiful and correct meaning. So such kind of critical analysis, critical text. And somebody said that something is latter or something. So there are a lot of texts which are latter written. जैसे कि आता भगवद गीता, जैसे बाबा साहब ने बोला था, भगवद गीता के बारे में बाबा साहब क्या बोलते हैं कि it is a latter text. 4th century में भगवद गीता became a text in 4th century. So 4th century text is Bhagavad Gita. But that reference you find in Baba Saheb's riddles in Hinduism very quickly. You don't have to search whole Puranas and Veda and Dharma Shastra, Vishnu Smriti, Manusmriti, or Apastamba Dharma Sutra, or Gautam Dharma Sutra. You don't have to study all these texts. You just read riddles. In that Rama and Krishna, you will find that references with the Bhagavad Gita referring to Buddhist texts. So this proves that Bhagavad Gita is written after Buddha or after Buddhist text. So such kind of inquiry has to be done. Now it is very natural that in last 100 years the Sanskrit people, or they have a lot of things, or a lot of things are there. But we have to also see how these things can be understood and can be reinterpreted. Because I tell you my experience, when the people were talking about this, I'll tell you situation, Buddhist studies outside India. When I was talking to few guys, this people in Bangkok, there was a conference. I am working on a big project within 20 people, and these 20 scholars are working from different universities like Kyoto University or Stanford University, Harvard University, and we are working on one project, an online project, and we met personally. And I show him some Devanagari text, okay, And all guys said, Praveen, this is Sanskrit, this is Sanskrit, this is Sanskrit. I said, this is not Sanskrit, this is Marathi, and I have written my family's name and my family's history. So when they see something in Devanagari, they say it's Sanskrit. So then I ask another question. Now when you see something in Devanagari, Devanagari script is not 1000 year old. Devanagari script is hardly 800 year or 600 year old. But you say that Sanskrit is 10,000 year old or 5,000 year old. Your claim is that. Because we have to counter people's claims. Whatever might be their claim. Their claim can be right or wrong. That is a different story. Then they say, yes, Praveen, we agree, but when we say Sanskrit is always in Devanagari, I said, but Devanagari is not 100 year old, 800 year old. They say, yes, Praveen, Devanagari script is only 1000 year old. Then I ask him, then what are the oldest proofs of Sanskrit written in any script? But there were no proofs given by them. Say, no, but Praveen is orally maintained and orally this and that. I said, look, you people, European people always talk about proofs and archaeological things, and now you are giving me same question that this is not 1000 year old. So how can be Sanskrit be 1000 year old if it is not written? The next thing, I gave him a Buddhist reference. I said I can do a Pali text or a Tipitaka written in Sinhala in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, the Sinhala text is written 2000 year old. So we have a 2000 year old written proof of Buddhist text. Now you go to Afghanistan. There is a University of Washington where people also can contact this Professor Richard Solomon. He is working on Gandhara text, and there is a Dhammapada. I think Venerable Bhanteji has also translated Dhammapada in Hindi. और गांधारा स्क्रिप्ट में बनते जी 2000 साल पुराने मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट पे प्राकृत लैंग्वेज में वो मिला है. तो प्राकृत में गांधारा टेक्स्ट धम्मपदा ओरिजिनल मैन्युस्क्रिप्ट अवेलेबल है. तो आपके पास फिर आपका वेदा, आपका धर्मशास्त्र, आपका भगवद गीता कुछ भी अवेलेबल नहीं है. देन हाउ यू से इट इज 10,000 year old or 5,000 year old? So this is how we can question the existing what we say जो assumptions है, those can be questioned and targeted और those can be cleared out कि नहीं अगर भगवद गीता अगर 5000 साल पुरानी है तो उसमें बुद्ध के रेफरेंसेस क्यों आए, बुद्धिस्ट टेक्स्ट के रेफरेंसेस क्यों आए, विशुद्धि मगा के रेफरेंसेस क्यों आए. अगर आपका कोई भी धर्मशास्त्र अगर पुराना है तो जैसे बाबा साहेब ने बोला था वर्णाश्रम धर्म इज द लैटर एडिशन टू द वेदास. क्योंकि ऋग्वेद बोलते हैं ऋग्वेद हमारा 10,000 साल पुराना है, उसमें वर्णाश्रम धर्म लिखा है. इफ यू रीड ऋग्वेद चैप्टर 10 वर्स 90 चैप्टर बुक नंबर 10 chapter book number 10 90 verse and verse number are 11 and 12 within the 90 the stanza number 11 and 12. So Baba Sahib said it is latter introduction into the Veda. So we can get such references and proofs. Okay, these are the latter modifications done. क्योंकि अगर आपने कभी लिखा ही नहीं, मैं आपको 2000 साल पुराने लिखा हुआ त्रिपिटका दिखा सकता हूँ. मैं अगर गांधारा स्क्रिप्ट में लिखा हुआ आपको धम्मपद दिखा सकता हूँ, तो आप मुझे भगवद गीता या ऋग्वेदा 2000 साल पहले लिखी हुई दिखाइए, किसी भी स्क्रिप्ट में दिखाइए, किसी भी लैंग्वेज में दिखाइए. नो प्रॉब्लम ऑफ लैंग्वेज एंड स्क्रिप्ट. लेकिन वो अवेलेबल नहीं है, और अगर वो ओरली मेंटेन किया है तो नेचुरली देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स हैज हैपन. So I think there are many such things, and I should conclude. So if you have next question, you can ask. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry that actually we need to stick on the time. We have another session. We can join next session also. We can discuss more detail. So there is a question from our group. Please go ahead. Sunil ji?
What is the question?
Yeah, there is a question. Go ahead. Oh, I think he is muted.
Mike, you are asking me?
Yeah, you have question?
I don't have question, but Praveen ji, this is Sunil Gautam. Your analysis is excellent, and actually you are giving us more power to face any people to discuss any kind of thing. Because so far we are like we have been studying the Baba Sahib book, but you give us a better insight. I think excellent insight. Thank you.
Actually, I have a question. This is Prashant. I'm just sitting in front of him, but I won't ask this question, in front of all of us. So, I think I'm working with him as well. So, he has a vision to share the knowledge or share this huge ocean of Baba Sahib's writings and speeches to multiple people across the world. So he has been working on the digitization of this vast knowledge. So what kind of challenges you are facing to make these books digitized and propagate to each and every corner of the world, so that people having access to internet, they can read these books wherever they are. So what kind of challenges you're facing right now?
If this question is for me, then I would like to answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
For you.
So when we say why these ebooks are necessary, as I said, when it's come to academic framework, they need book, reference, and page. I gave you few references, but now as Baba Saheb writing are not able to reach because of Maharashtra government will not print many copies. They will print hardly 30,000 copies, and those will be finished in 2 days. And most of the people will not have the real book to give some reference. Neither the PhD scholar there is one PhD scholar in University of Edinburgh, Scotland. She has done her MA thesis on educate, organize, educate, organize, and educate. That is her MA thesis. That British lady, hardly 23-year-old, she has done her MA thesis on that topic. But this problem are facing, these people are facing a problem of not having access to the actual text or the actual book. We all are IT guys or digitized guys. So the problem here is that we have not digitized this Baba Saheb writing and speeches. I have spoken to the Maharashtra government, as well as I have spoken to the copyright holder, this Honorable Prakash Ambedkar. I went to his house and he said, Praveen, this is given to Maharashtra government now and you can talk to those people. So now I am talking to the Maharashtra government people, but Maharashtra government people are happy. They say, okay, Praveen, I went to the government officers. We have to spend a lot of time and our blood behind these people. They don't want the things to come in front of the international community. If a person, a German student or a high student studies any book, so he cannot call us biased or prejudiced. So by studying the text, he say, okay, you are Anna people or you Indian people, you might be bad or very bad, but I am reading the actual text or still book, and that is not saying wrong or all the foolish thing, but it is saying something which is useful for our thesis or PhD, and this is how this thing can be reached. But now the digitization is not happening because it needs to start with permissions we are getting. That is not an issue now. Now I reached to after 2009. I am working on this. It's 2013. So in 5 years, the permissions issue has been solved. Now I have put up a proposal in front of the government. I don't think we need very big money because already we are spending a lot of money. And we are donating a lot of money for running this task. But if we bring these ebooks online, then only all these people in this world can refer the actual book and they can do their thesis and interpretations, and we can reach to the maximum people, and especially the non-Buddhist world, the academically honest work, because that intellectual honesty you will not find in Indian universities, but at least there is some honesty, intellectual honesty in this foreign world. So this is how we have to reach, and this is a big challenge. We have to start a project. Our proposals are ready, but few people should come forward, and we can start this independent work with some academic framework. Because if we lose the academic framework, then that will not be used by the universities. That is the problem. So emotionally people do it, but this is not acceptable in that world. That is the problem.
Okay, Praveen, we can certainly continue the dialogue offline, and we can explore how we can help you guys in moving this forward.
Praveen, you have said correct word, correct thing. What we are also facing the same problem here, Praveen, that we try to order the Buddha in his Dhamma. Vivek, can you go ahead on that question? Basically, we are trying to order the Buddha in his Dhamma, and we are facing a lot of problems that the copies are not available, the copies are not printed because the rights are given to the Thailand, I believe, Thailand or somewhere else, and they keep saying that there is no more copies. Is that true?
Yeah. I tell you, the copies are not printed. For example, if I ask you, have you read volume number 4? I don't think volume number 4 is reprinted. Only in my institute you will find all the 22 copies, because I go to the Pune office, that my father goes there. My father will buy those copies the moment they come to the Shaskiya Mudranalaya. He goes and he buys the copy. That is why in our institute we have all the 22 volumes, but they are not reprinted. And the simplest solution is to have not typing and copying them into the web, but instead we should have a proper digitization of that whole book as a book, So you can literally see the pages and you can see and you can get what you want to read. So instead of asking a hard copy of Buddha and Dhamma or volume number 7 or volume number 9, it's better to get this online in a digitized format which is acceptable to the mainstream educational system. I hope this might answer your question.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions to Praveen? Again, Praveen, it was a lot of insight to us. I also learned a lot of things today. I was not knowing the Sati is a Buddhist word. And also I got a lot of response from your presentation. I mean, again,
and this debates and discussions and I must tell you, these debates and discussions connects a lot of people. Currently, I am working with 20 universities, and you name any university, I'll find a friend there. So it's good to bring these discussions, and people now like to read and understand Baba Sahib also, but there is no text reaching in front of them. That is why they will not trust my word or your word. They will always say, Praveen, you are a prejudiced Ambedkarite. So according to the international community, I am an prejudiced Ambedkarite.
Hello.
But yeah.